9 million euros were spent from the EU budget on resisting disinformation between 2018 and 2020. For comparison, the budgetary financing of pro-Kremlin media reached $3 billion during the same period. Why does Russia spend such a colossal amount of money on propaganda? For years, our life has been rife with disinformation, none more blatant than fake news. Hoaxes, half-truths, outright lies flashed through the internet at warp speed. A lot of studies that were cited by media outlets, including, for example, the Washington Post, accuse Russia of using thousands of botnets, teams of paid human, so-called trolls, networks of websites and social media accounts to echo and amplify false or misleading tweets, social media posts, videos and media reports. And what for? Russian propaganda creates and spreads fakes in order to sow doubts among Europeans, undermine trust in the local institutions, increase the tension in society and create discord between different social groups. Now let's review 5 of the greatest fakes the Russian Federation seduced Europeans to believe in. My name is Gregor Razumovsky, and today I'll tell you a little bit more about how Russia really acts. Certainly, the state over whose territory this happened bears responsibility, said Putin, trying to deny the guilt of Moscow over the crash of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. Russian propaganda machine spreads the statement immediately. According to the Blatant investigation, the main intelligence directorate of the Russian Federation, known as the GRU, ran the creation of the whole chain of platforms that were spreading fakes about the reasons of the MH17 crash. Even after the official accusations from the Dutch government, the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, was convincing the world of the worthlessness of these claims. Moscow officials accused the Dutch of using the tragedy to achieve their own political goals. And to quote the ironic statement of Lavrov, they have practically no doubt that the Buk missile came from Russia. They did not give me any facts, said the Russian minister after a phone call with his Dutch colleague Stef Blok. The conclusion of the international investigation into the MH17 tragedy proved the guilt of Russia in the Boeing downing. The joint investigative team concluded that the Buk missile that was used to shoot down flight MH17 originated from the 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. The conclusion is obvious. But how many of those who heard about the MH17 disaster have read these official reports? How many know that 298 people died from the Russian missile? The Kremlin did its very best that we didn't know, were confused by the versions or doubted the official conclusions. In 2016, a Russian-born 13-year-old girl, known only as Lisa F., claimed that she was kidnapped and raped by 3 refugees while living in Berlin. And the so-called Lisa case provoked a huge response on social media. Russian news outlets ran with the news before the police could even complete the investigation. And it also sparked protests in Berlin, where campaigners condemned refugee policy of Angela Merkel. The story went so far that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation accused the German government of trying to cover it up and of, quoting, sweeping problems under the rug. In return, Berlin warned Russia not to exploit the case for propaganda. Just days after the report, the police of Berlin concluded the investigation and said that the girl had spent 30 hours in which she was reportedly kidnapped with people she knew, and that a medical examination had shown she had not been raped. But the Russian propaganda managed to make a part of the audience believe in fake statements. A lot of people, particularly German Russians, still refused to believe the German police or the German government, even after the story was disproved. In fall 2016, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation claimed that Belgian jets killed 6 civilians near the Syrian city of Aleppo. The statement also reported about the injuries of civilians and destruction of infrastructure. The narrative of accusations were simultaneously spread in numerous TV programs, tweets, posts and comments in social media. It was also supported by pro-Kremlin experts, bloggers, politicians and observers. Belgian Minister of Defense Stefan van de Putte called such claims fabricated and said that on those days Belgian planes were not flying in the Aleppo area. The Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Titov, reacted with a sharp statement. It is perplexing that Belgium continues to stubbornly deny the fact that the Belgian Air Force perpetrated an airstrike in the suburbs of Aleppo, killing civilians. According to his words, the evidence provided by the Russian side are maps with flight paths of the alleged Belgian F-16 fighter aircrafts. At the same time, according to the head of the Belgian Ministry of Defense, the identification friend or foe does not belong to the Belgian Air Force. And it proves that the claim of the Ministry of Defense are fabricated. This widely spread fake statement by Russian officials was quickly refuted, but it managed to seep into the EU audience. A wave of discussions about the various theories on the possible participation of the West in the military operations in Syria was raised, and once sown doubts did not fade away. By the end of 2018, the rating of the French President Emmanuel Macron fell to the record low of 23%. The so-called Yellow Vests protests played a key role in this. Several hundreds of protesters all over the country demanded that the French president resign. I was in Paris at that time. I want to emphasize that it was really very violent. At the same time, Marine Le Pen, known for a long-standing friendship with the Kremlin, began to attract the electorate's sympathies. Later, Moscow's interference in the information campaign on the Yellow Vest was revealed. And according to the Alliance for Securing Democracy, over 600 Russian Twitter accounts provoked people into the protests. Moreover, the Times also writes about the involvement of the Russian Federation in the protests, referring to the analysis of new knowledge, a company that deals with cybersecurity. They exposed more than 200 accounts that posted fake photos allegedly taken during French protests. Russia denied any involvement in the French Yellow Vest protests and actively disseminated a statement about Macron's inability to conduct a sincere dialogue with society. In the presidential elections 2022, Macron was ahead of his opponent Le Pen by only 17%. The narratives of a weak reaction to Yellow Vest protests were chasing Macron during the whole campaign. In March 2017, a 52-year-old Muslim convert, Khalid Massoud, who had been radicalized by IS propaganda, drove a van into pedestrians on the Westminster Bridge in London. He killed 5 people, including a police officer on duty who tried to stop him. The account, nicknamed @SouthLoneStar, tweeted a picture of a woman in a hijab walking past the victim laying on the ground while she was on her phone. The tweet accused the Muslim woman of ignoring the injured man. The statement was picked up by far-right activists in the UK and the US, and the woman was attacked for indifference to the scene. The journalist of The Independent, a British daily, found the man who took the picture. He told that the woman was clearly traumatized and visibly distressed. He added that she was just one of hundreds fleeing the bridge, trying to avoid looking at the horror surrounding them. It softened the case, but it didn't stop the wave of hate. The British government has accused Russia of planting fake stories in the media in an extraordinary attack on Moscow's attempts to weaponize information in order to sow discord in Europe. And here is an explanation. The account that tweeted the picture was identified as a Russian bot in the course of US investigation into Moscow's influence on the 2016 presidential election. Russia has repeatedly been accused of running troll factories that disseminate fake news and divisive posts on social media. This is the YouTube channel The Power of Reason. Always remember that our true power lies in rational thought and a clear mind when we're threatened with the daily flow of disinformation and manipulation of news. So please do the reasonable thing and subscribe to our channel right